like to tell you some stories which have to do with ancient Greece. I decided that my fine arts training was not relevant anymore. Artistic training during the 20th century, in my opinion, was a bit of a disaster. The 20th century will be remembered as the century of science. But artistic accomplishments pale in comparison with the scientific revolutions that we had during the 20th century. Yes, we had a lot of modernisms. We have isms for every taste. And this is my critique. The visual arts became a kind of a decorative art. They cater to a certain public, they sell a certain product, and they're just decoration. And because in the West we have this tendency of not sticking to any kind of beliefs or even love. Love is taboo. You don't talk about love in erudite speech. You don't talk about love in the contemporary arts. That's taboo. It's kitsch, they say. It's not intellectual, they say. And I want to challenge that. So I'm going straight back to the ancient Greeks. There was no more intellectual people, more than these so-called academics and experts that say you should not talk about these things. And what happened during the 20th century, I repeat, is that art became just an entertainment for the super boards. The elites, they've got nothing to do. So every 2 or 3 years, they change the decoration for their homes. Do you know what I mean? It's a very, very, very low bar to live for. So when I finished my artistic training, I decided to start learning proper painting. And I hope that this will be an inspiration for all of you, because there are lots of creative people in here, and there's also people that come from a business background, and sometimes you want to think outside the box. I hope there will be something in these stories for every single person in this room, and perhaps for a few people that are still upstairs waiting to come in. I hope there is something for everyone. I'm going to start with a tale. Apelles and Protogenes. God, how do you pronounce it? It's written in Greek underneath. So whoever can read it, go ahead. We don't have paintings from ancient Greece. They haven't survived. They're all gone. But we have stories, we have narratives that describe the paintings quite well. And the ancient Greeks considered that the art of painting was more developed than the art of sculpture. And the Greek sculptures are quite something to behold. Paintings were better, according to the Greeks. Now, we have some tales, as I was telling you. We don't know how they looked like, but we can be quite certain that they valued excellent technique. Come on, just look at the Greek vases. They're superb. And they were not made by fine artists, they were made by craftsmen. Ask your local craftsman to do a Greek vase, they can't do it. Nowadays, they can't do it. Look at the glorious paintings from Pompeii, which were Roman, but again, they were not painted by artists. They were painted by decorators. Ask your decorator to paint those landscapes. They can't do it. The fine artists, which were considered even better, we don't have any work in painting from those times, okay? We'll leave it to imagination. Let's start with the first story, Apelles and Protogenes. According to the legend, Apelles went to visit Protogenes, and when he arrived, Protogenes wasn't at home. So the housemaid asked Apelles to please say his name. He refused. He said that instead he was going to leave a trace that Protogenes would recognize. And what was that trace? Apelles went to one of the boards that Protogenes was painting, because they were both painters, this whiteboard, and he paints the finest line, cutting through the whole board without any mistake. When Protogenes arrived home, he realized that must have been Apelles, because nobody could paint like that. But in order to outrun Apelles, in order to create a challenge, he takes the brush, Protogenes takes the brush and paints an even finer line inside the line that Apelles had painted. So imagine a human hair, and then you paint a line even finer inside. The second time Apelles returned, he saw the line inside his line, so he decided to prove once for all that he was the finest painter in Greece. He takes again the brush, and finally he paints a line that is so thin that it's hardly visible and it's impossible to improve upon. Pliny the Elder saw that painting, the historian. Pliny the Elder, remember? He died at the Vesuvius trying to save the people from Pompeii and Herculaneum. It was the first time in recorded history that there was a fleet of ships trying to save people. It was a rescue mission. Pliny died because of the volcanic ashes. But Pliny the Elder, that wrote the Encyclopedia, he tells many stories. So now you know the story of the thin lines and the love for precision. I'm going to tell you now a second story. Zeuxis and Parrhasius. Now, this second story is also about technique. It's also about the importance of being truly good at what you do, being the best. Not just truly good, being the best at what you do. Zeuxis and Parrhasius, they were having an argument. They both had an ego, I believe. And they both claimed to be the finest painters in Greece. They both said, I'm the best. The other said, I'm the best. So there was this contest. Zeuxis had the power to trick nature. Every time Zeuxis would paint a still life, the birds would fly from heaven and try to pick on the grapes. The insects would fly towards the flowers. The rodents would try to eat whatever was in there. So Zeuxis had the power of tricking nature. Now, according to this story, Zeuxis painted his usual trick. He painted a still life. Parrhasius approaches Zeuxis and he says, you are the superior painter. I'm so ashamed of showing my own painting, says Parrhasius. Zeuxis starts feeling secure on the victory. And then a miracle happened. And Zeuxis was even more secure about his victory. A bird flies from heaven, tries to pick one of the grapes, but because it crashes against the wall, it falls on the ground, faints, reawakens, and flies off. In that moment, Zeuxis knew that he was going to win, because nature itself had been deceived by his painting. Parrhasius carries on and he says, I am humbled, and I don't want to show you my painting. In that moment, Zeuxis approaches Parrhasius' curtain and he pulls the curtain to try to uncover Parrhasius' painting. But then somehow he misses the curtain. And then he pulls it again. He misses it. To his horror and utter shock, he realizes that he has been deceived. That's not the real curtain, that was Parrhasius' painting. So, Parrhasius is the winner because Zeuxis tricks nature, but Parrhasius tricked Zeuxis. Alright? I'm going to leave you now with the third story, which is going to be projected. So I'm going to ask if somebody could tell the security to turn off the lights, please. The arts must be the only expertise where you cannot distinguish the work of a beginner from the work of a master, because they all look the same. This is the problem. I've created a series of very intensive, high-quality art courses, which go back even to Renaissance times. And the one you're about to see is also a story. Every artist needs a muse. This is a moment where I'm about to find the muse of painting. This was filmed at the Royal Palace of Lisbon, Palácio Nacional da Ajuda. And whether you believe it or not, it's going to be an art course. I've never seen an art course set up in such a manner, so I hope this is a world's premiere of something new, never seen before. I'm going to tell you a last story. Cora and Butades. According again to Pliny the Elder, that historian I was telling you about, Butades was a potter, and his daughter, Cora, she fell in love with a man, with a young soldier, and he was going to war. And because she knew that she would not see him alive again, with a bit of charcoal, she outlines the shape of his shadow that he was projecting on the wall, so that she would never forget him anymore. And that was the birth of drawing. Cora was absolutely devastated when she found out that her boyfriend was killed at war. When his body came back home, dismembered, she only had the line of charcoal to remind her of him. She asked her father for help. Butades was a very, very skillful potter. He prepares the clay. He puts the clay inside the outlines that she had drawn a few months before. And they try to emulate the shape of the dead man to immortalize him. And that was the birth of sculpture. And then Pliny concludes that the sculpture went to bake in the oven, together with some other pots that the father had done that day. Whatever you do it for love. You can never be truly magnificent in anything artistic if you're not 100% passionate about what you are doing. Even if you're painting hatred, even if you're painting the lack of love, but you must be totally, totally enamored with the subject that you choose. Thank you so much for your presence.